And the economic and political fallout from the debt ceiling fiasco is far from over. Now, while it likely helped America avoid a government default, the deal did nothing to address our deficit and issues of the left. It left wide open a possible downgrade in our credit rating, and that's something that Moody's is still threatening. And now the focus shifts to the so-called super committee, which will recommend how to cut another $1.5 trillion from the deficit, supposedly by Thanksgiving. Sounds like a pending round 2 of the great debt debate. Joining me with reaction in studio tonight, Florida Congressman, the one and only Connie Mack. I've been talking a lot to you and about you lately.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, by the way.
I even got Donald Trump to endorse your deal today. He's been watching, and you know, he's like, that makes perfect sense to me. Why don't he wanted to know if it was real, if it really works.
Yeah, it works. You know, we before we introduced the bill, we made sure that as we went through the bill writing process, we went and had everybody check out the numbers. This is a plan that's simple, as you know. It works, and it solves our problems.
Did you have it CBO scored?
No, it won't get. It doesn't get scored until it's coming to the floor.
Okay. So now, in the course of this, Louis Gohmert told me, and Paul Ryan confirmed this. Paul Ryan's going to vote this out of committee. The idea that we're going to have a vote on the baseline, and Speaker Boehner said that told Louis Gohmert that he would support it. Just so everyone knows what we're talking about, your Mack Penny plan is.
It is really simple. So for 6 years, we're going to cut 1% of spending for 6 years.
Wait, we're going to freeze at 2011 levels?
That's right.
3.7 trillion? 3.6 trillion?
3.6 some trillion. So we're going to freeze it at that level. Then we're going to take 1% a year for 6 years.
Cut 1%?
Cut 1%.
1 penny out of every dollar.
1 penny out of every dollar. Everybody has had to take more than 1 penny out of every dollar of their home budget, of their business budget. This isn't a big lift, and Washington can do it. Then we cap spending to 18% of GDP in the 7th year, and in the 8th year, the budget is balanced. And after 10 years, we cut 7.5 trillion. All of this talk about the cuts, that supposed cuts that happened in this last bill that passed, those aren't cuts. Those are fantasy cuts. Those are reductions in the rate of growth. And everyone knows if you continue to spend 1.6 trillion more than you bring in, you have to borrow that money. It adds to the debt. Right. We can't continue to do that.
Your fellow Floridian, Marco Rubio, I think spelled it out best when he was giving his arguments. He said, look, we spend, we take in, what, $180 billion a month, right? Mm-hmm. We spend $120 billion more, so we spend $300 billion.
That's right.
But we don't take in 180. So we borrow $120 billion, or 40 cents of every dollar they spend, we borrow. Yeah, how could you not become Greece? How could you not become bankrupt?
Sean, can you imagine if that was an individual? Can you imagine if an individual went to a bank and tried to get a credit card?
Yeah, good luck.
No way. The debt-to-income ratio is so out of whack, you wouldn't even have they would laugh you out of the bank.
You know, look, I'm supporting this plan because I think it makes the most sense. I really believe the House Republicans would want to do this. Obviously, it's a non-starter in the Senate. And certainly the president, he always wants to raise taxes. That's his answer after he spent all this money and increased discretionary spending 84%. How is the momentum growing? Because Marco Rubio signed on to this.
That's right.
Utah Senator Mike Lee signed on to this.
That's right. Kay Bailey Hutchison has signed on it.
I know that, yeah. And who else? Rand Paul, obviously.
Rand Paul. So that's in the Senate. We have 57 people who have signed on the bill in the House. It's growing. People coming to me every day. And look, Sean, you know what's amazing about this? It's gone from, you know, an idea that we've kind of come up with, some grassroots organizations that came up with this. Now it's growing. I mean, so it's not just conservatives. It's moderate Republicans.
Independents.
It's independents. It's Democrats. There are Democrats who look at it and say, this makes sense, you know.
Is there any Democrat that signed on to it yet, or are they too afraid of their leadership?
Not yet, but I think we'll get there. I think a lot of them were waiting till after this debt ceiling because from the other side they said, look, we're not doing anything on debt ceiling unless we raise taxes.
You know what's frustrating is and because we keep telling the country we're going to save $2 trillion. We just saved $2 trillion, but really in this 10-year period, we're going to give the president $900 billion. In 2 years, we're only going to save $67 billion or cut $67 billion, but we're still increasing spending every year. This is what people don't understand. The baseline is we are assuming that spending growth goes up 8% a year every year for 8 years.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? So what's really sad about this is if we tried to make the cuts that we needed, everybody in Congress would say, no, those are drastic cuts. Mm-hmm. But those are this is increases. Nobody thinks that we should be increasing spending right now. Yeah. We're broke.
You know, and that's the funny, but all of these issues get demagogued, all of them.
Yeah.
So what you put in place is Congress can decide how they want to cut. They can cut this program 15%, this program 10%, and even increase spending in another program. But if they don't do it, it's across the board bottom line.
That's right.
And you got to live within your means.
And so that's the trigger in all this, is that if the Congress fails to act and make the requisite 1%, then it'll be across the board.
Can you do this without modifying and adjusting Social Security and Medicare, or do you really have to deal with that?
We would have to make reforms to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Right, if we don't do that, you know, no matter what program, if we want to balance the budget, you have to take on the entitlements.
Where can people read about the Mack penny plan?
They can go to my official website at mac.house.gov. There's a little link on there. They can go to it. They can go to my my campaign site, conniemack.com, and sign a petition. So we're going to continue to push this.
Your district is my adopted district, you know, in Southwest Florida.
And we're proud to have you there, Sean.
Well, not everybody, but it is a good conservative county. Most people.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right, Congressman, good to see you.
Thank you.